The Lakers just got blown out on Christmas Day versus the Rockets, 119-96. Austin Reeves didn't return in the second half with the calf injury, and JJ Redick wasn't happy in his post-game interview.
Christmas Day in the NBA is never just another game. It's a spotlight, a test, a moment where franchises are reminded who they are supposed to be. For some teams, it's about exposure. For others, it's about validation. But for the Los Angeles Lakers, Christmas Day has always meant legacy. It's where history meets expectation, where effort is assumed and excuses are not accepted. That's why what happened against the Houston Rockets felt so jarring. Because it wasn't just a loss, it was a breakdown.
What did you see overall in the game, kind of starting in that first quarter on the glass and the turnovers, and how that prevailed through it?
Yeah, the two words of the day were effort and execution. And, I feel like when we've done both of those things at a high level, we've been a good basketball team. When we haven't, we're a terrible basketball team. And tonight we were a terrible basketball team. And that started legitimately right away.
By the time the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard showed Rockets 119, Lakers 96. A 23-point defeat on one of the biggest stages of the season. National television, packed arena, holiday atmosphere. And yet, from the opening minutes, the Lakers looked like a team that didn't understand the moment. Houston did. The Rockets came out playing fast, aggressive, and connected. They crashed the glass, pressured the ball, and attacked every possession with urgency. The Lakers, meanwhile, looked a step slow, mentally and physically. Rotations were late. Box outs were half-hearted. The energy gap was obvious before the game even settled in. It took less than a minute for the warning signs to appear.
Why do you think your team was unable to execute the things that it was tasked with?
Because we don't care enough right now. And that's the part that bothers you a lot. We don't care enough to do the things that are necessary. We don't care enough to be a professional. It's, we had it. We had it. This is. I always say this about culture. I always say this about the team being a good team being a functioning organism. It can change like that. We don't have it right now.
Within the first 48 seconds, Houston missed 2 shots and grabbed both offensive rebounds. 2 extra chances. 2 examples of effort beating reputation. 2 moments that should never happen if a team is locked in from the jump. JJ Redick noticed immediately, and after the game, he didn't pretend otherwise. When asked what he saw overall, Redick stripped the performance down to its core. No excuses, no jargon. Effort and execution. That was it.
How do you improve on these things when you can't practice enough?
Oh, we practice them all the time. It's not, again, it goes back to what I said the other night. It's a matter of making the choice. And too often we have guys that don't want to make that choice. And it's pretty consistent who those guys are. And so Saturday's practice, I told the guys, it's going to be uncomfortable. The meeting is going to be uncomfortable. I'm not doing another 53 games like this.
Then came the line that defined the night. When we do both of those things at a high level, we're a good basketball team. When we don't, we're a terrible basketball team. Tonight, we were a terrible basketball team. That wasn't anger. That was diagnosis. Because this wasn't about talent. It wasn't about scheme. It wasn't about one bad shooting night. This was about something that's been building quietly behind the scenes and finally spilled out on Christmas Day. The Lakers weren't just beaten, they were outworked. As the game went on, the problems compounded. Austin Reeves, one of the Lakers' most dependable contributors, didn't return in the second half due to a calf injury. His absence only magnified the flaws already present. The offense stagnated. Ball movement slowed. Turnovers became careless rather than forced. Houston took full advantage. They pushed the pace. They attacked mismatches. They punished every lazy closeout and every missed rotation. The Rockets played like a team hungry to prove they belonged on that stage. The Lakers played like a team expecting the stage to carry them. And that difference is what alarmed JJ Redick the most.
Was there anything that you recall that your team did to get out of it, to kind of get the momentum back that could be replicable in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think every group is different, and the circumstances of trying to get out of it, I think, are different. I wish I had a good answer to that question, because I think it's a fair and valid question. It's hard because each individual guy is at a different space, so you're trying to get all of the individuals to function as a team, and you got to address what's going on right now, and it's hard to draw parallels. Does that make sense? Yeah.
When a reporter asked how it feels as a coach to emphasize rebounding, only to see it fail almost immediately, Redick cut him off. "It doesn't matter how I feel." That sentence spoke volumes, because it revealed that this is no longer about frustration or disappointment. It's about standards. And according to Redick, those standards aren't being met consistently or seriously enough. Then came the moment that shifted the entire interview. When asked why the Lakers were unable to execute what they were tasked to do, Redick didn't deflect. He didn't soften the answer. He told the truth. "Because we don't care enough right now." The room went quiet. "We don't care enough to do the things that are necessary. We don't care enough to be a professional." Those words are heavy, especially coming from a head coach, especially coming from someone who understands the grind of the NBA, especially coming on Christmas Day.
JJ, you mentioned the lack of care factor right now. Is there anything, whether it's you or your coaching staff, is care factor coachable, or is that just either have it or you don't?
No, I think guys will say they want to win. The care factor to me is like, do I care enough to actually do what I'm supposed to do and just do it consistently? And that's really what the championship habits are, and that's what we don't have right now.
It's follow up on that. If you're saying, you said earlier, it's the same guys not executing, does that just come down to, look, if you don't do it now, your rotation spot?
We've given everybody a chance.
Redick wasn't questioning skill. He wasn't questioning basketball IQ. He was questioning commitment. And once that door is opened, it changes everything. He went on to talk about culture, not as a buzzword, but as something fragile, something living, something that can fall apart quickly if it's not constantly reinforced. A team, he explained, is like a functioning organism. When everyone is aligned, it works. When they're not, it breaks. We don't have it right now. That wasn't criticism. That was honesty. And honesty is uncomfortable because it forces accountability. When the conversation turned to practice time, Redick made something very clear. This isn't about preparation. The Lakers practice these things regularly. They drill them. They review them on film. They talk about them constantly. The problem isn't knowledge. It's choice. "It's a matter of making the choice," Redick said. "Too often we have guys that don't want to make that choice." Then he added the line that sent shockwaves. "And it's pretty consistent who those guys are." That was not a throwaway comment. That was a message.
Redick didn't need to name names. Everyone in that locker room knows exactly who he was talking about. And everyone watching knows what that means going forward. When he revealed that the upcoming practice and team meeting would be uncomfortable, the picture became even clearer. "I'm not doing another 53 games like this." That's not frustration speaking. That's a boundary. That's a coach telling his team that the status quo is over. Because when a coach publicly says everyone has been given a chance, it usually means change is coming. Rotations, roles, minutes, accountability, possibly more. This wasn't just about one loss. This was about a pattern of inconsistent effort, a pattern of selective urgency, a pattern of saying the right things without doing the right things. And when asked whether the care factor is something that can be coached, Redick delivered one of the most revealing answers of his career. Guys will say they want to win, but the care factor to me is whether you care enough to actually do what you're supposed to do, and do it consistently. That's what championship habits are, and that's what we don't have right now. That statement cuts deep, because championship habits aren't flashy. They don't show up in highlights. They show up in box outs, defensive rotations,
sprinting back in transition, setting solid screens, and making sacrifices that don't earn applause. The Lakers didn't do those things. Not consistently, not seriously, not on Christmas Day. And that's why this loss feels heavier than a normal blowout. This wasn't a young team learning on the job. This wasn't a rebuilding roster figuring things out. This was a veteran group failing to meet baseline expectations. The turnovers weren't forced, they were careless. The defensive mistakes weren't complicated, they were avoidable. And the body language told the story long before the final score did. This team didn't look connected, and JJ Redick sees it. That's why this post-game interview matters so much. Because it wasn't emotional venting. It wasn't frustration in the heat of the moment. It was calculated honesty. A message to the players, a message to the fans, and a message to the organization. The Lakers are at a crossroads. When effort becomes optional, nothing else works. Not the playbook, not the stars, not the history of the franchise, not the banners hanging in the rafters. And Christmas Day might be remembered as the moment everything finally cracked. Because when a coach questions professionalism publicly, it usually means the internal conversations have already happened and haven't produced change. Now the pressure shifts. Who responds? Who takes this personally? Who decides to make the choice JJ Redick is talking about? Because if they don't, this season won't be remembered for wins or highlights. It will be remembered for wasted potential and unanswered warnings. And on Christmas Day, JJ Redick made one thing unmistakably clear. The care factor is gone. And until it comes back, nothing changes. And what makes this moment even more alarming is where this team is in the season. This isn't October. This isn't the early phase where teams are still learning each other, experimenting with rotations, or figuring out identity. By Christmas, teams usually know who they are, or at least who they're trying to be. The Lakers right now don't. And that uncertainty showed in every possession against Houston. There were moments where the Lakers had numbers in transition and didn't push. Moments where defensive communication broke down on simple actions. Moments where one missed shot led to heads dropping, shoulders slumping, and fingers pointing instead of feet moving. Those are not tactical issues. Those are trust issues. And trust is built through effort. When JJ Redick talks about care, he's not speaking in abstract terms. He's talking about habits, about details, about the unglamorous parts of the game that separate teams that compete from teams that collapse. Because in the NBA, talent alone doesn't save you, especially not anymore. The league is too fast, too skilled, too deep. Young teams like Houston don't care about banners or reputation. They care about opportunity. And on Christmas Day, the Rockets treated that game like an opportunity to announce themselves. The Lakers treated it like an obligation. That difference matters. You could see it in the way Houston players sprinted back on defense after missed shots, in the way they fought over screens, in the way they contested rebounds like every possession mattered. Meanwhile, the Lakers too often watched the ball instead of attacking it. Those little lapses add up, and they compound quickly. Once the Lakers fell behind, there was no visible sense of urgency to stop the bleeding. No collective push, no emotional spark, just isolated efforts scattered across the floor. That's not how connected teams respond, and JJ Redick knows that.
That's why his words carried so much weight. Because this wasn't a coach protecting his locker room. This was a coach demanding more from it, publicly. And that's not something coaches do lightly. Especially not with a franchise like the Lakers, where every quote becomes a headline and every comment is dissected. Redick knew exactly what he was doing when he spoke the way he did. This was intentional. Because when internal messages don't land, sometimes they have to become external. And that raises an uncomfortable question. How long has this been brewing? The way Redick spoke suggested this wasn't a sudden realization. This was a breaking point. A moment where patience ran out. A moment where the same mistakes, the same patterns, the same lack of follow-through finally demanded a response. That's why he emphasized that it's pretty consistent who isn't making the choice. That's not about one bad night. That's about habits. And habits define seasons. The Lakers' issue right now isn't that they can't play better. It's that they don't always choose to. And that's the hardest thing to fix. Because effort can't be schemed. Care can't be forced. Accountability only works if players accept it. That's why Saturday's practice being described as uncomfortable matters so much. Uncomfortable usually means honest. It means film sessions that don't protect egos, conversations that aren't sugar-coated, roles that might change, minutes that might shrink, expectations that are no longer negotiable. For some players, that's a wake-up call. For others, it's a crossroads. And for the Lakers as a whole, it's a defining stretch. Because seasons don't usually fall apart all at once. They fracture slowly, through small compromises, through skipped details, through moments where effort becomes conditional instead of automatic. Christmas Day just happened to shine a spotlight on it. That's why fans reacted so strongly to this loss. It wasn't just disappointment, it was recognition. Recognition that something isn't right. Recognition that this team doesn't reflect what the Lakers brand is supposed to represent. And JJ Redick knows that better than anyone. Because coaching the Lakers isn't just about wins and losses. It's about standards, about accountability, about honoring the expectations that come with the jersey. And right now, those expectations aren't being met. That doesn't mean the season is over, but it does mean a response is required. Because the NBA doesn't wait. The schedule doesn't slow down. Opponents don't ease up. And teams that don't bring consistent effort get exposed, especially by younger, faster, more motivated teams, just like Houston did. So now the spotlight shifts back to the locker room. Not to what players say, but to what they do. Do rotations tighten up? Does defensive communication improve? Does rebounding become a priority instead of an afterthought? Does body language change when things get tough? Those answers won't come from press conferences. They'll come from habits. And that's exactly what JJ Redick is challenging his team to rebuild. Because when he says he's not coaching another 53 games like this, he's drawing a line between what's acceptable and what isn't. Between effort and excuses. Between talk and action. And history shows that moments like this define seasons. Either teams respond and grow, or they fracture further. There is no middle ground. So when this Christmas Day loss is looked back on months from now, it may not be remembered for the score. It may be remembered as the night the truth came out, the night effort was questioned, the night professionalism was challenged, the night a coach stopped protecting comfort and started demanding change. Because one thing is clear, the care factor isn't missing by accident, it's missing by choice. And until that choice changes, nothing else will.